Hello, everyone, and welcome to round two of the Empower You Energy Healing and Manifesting interviews. To kick off this second round, we have Daniel Greene, which you know of if you're part of the Empower You group. He's the originator of the series, so it was his baby, his idea. He wanted to do these interviews to show the world the talent that we have in the group and actually give value to everyone by listening to our healers inside the energy healing group. And he himself, of course, is a brilliant energy healer and psychic. And I won't say anything else. I'll just say welcome, Daniel, and thank you very much for doing this interview, which, well, I know is out of your comfort zone, but you really want to share your life, your story, and your goodies with the people in the group. So thank you very much.
Hello, Isabel. Thanks for doing this. And hello to everyone at home watching. It's a long time overdue, this, so I'm pleased to be here.
Well, you're the first one starting now our second round, so it's actually perfect. So to start it off, I'm just going to ask you if you could tell us a little bit more about yourself, about your path, about your experiences, and how you actually got to work in energy healing and psychic work.
Okay, yes. Well, let's have a think. Well, going back to childhood, I've always been sensitive and painfully shy. And I've always been aware of people's sort of bravado, but as a child, I didn't have that word for it. And the masks that we tend to wear. And again, I had my own bravado, my own versions of that, my own masks. I'm not trying to say I was any different, but I never quite understood it. People seemed to be acting. It's almost like they were in a role or in a movie or this sort of thing. And I tried to do that as well, and it just didn't seem to work. It seemed to be okay on them, but it didn't quite fit for me, which was really quite strange. It took me a lot of years and into adulthood to finally get a handle on what was going on. But I'm sort of taken back to a memory when I was about 4, maybe 5 years old. I was sent to bed one night, perhaps a school night, nursery night, I don't know. And as I'm lying on my bed, a man appears at the bottom of my bed, this old man, and he starts smiling at me and sort of reaching out, and I'm freaking out. I'm shouting at my parents, "Mom, Dad, there's a man in my room," and they were saying, "No, there's not. Stop making things up. Go to sleep, you naughty boy," whatever it was. So that was that. And that sort of thing was not encouraged and probably frowned upon. In fact, it was, to be honest, looking back. And other memories, while I used to have a paper round, I used to get up early before school, and I'm delivering newspapers through people's doors. And I used to get curious. I used to wonder who lived in these houses, and I could get a sense of whether this person lived alone, perhaps they were lonely, a lot of sadness. I'd go to another house and I would guess there was kids there, and a lot more sort of frivolity, a lot more happiness and more positive atmosphere. And I would do this to many of the houses, picked up on scent, on smells. And I guess what I was doing, even though I didn't know them, was sensing energies. That wouldn't become apparent till many years down the line. And then into school days, beyond the junior school, I used to enjoy the junior school, but beyond that, into the comprehensive, I hated it. And I used to be jealous of people who knew what they wanted to be when they grew up, because I had never a clue who I was, what my talents were. Like I say, I didn't excel at anything, and others were displaying brilliance, maybe at academia or sports or maybe acting or being the class comedian, or even the opposite sex. That, they might be popular at getting a boyfriend, a girlfriend, this sort of thing. And I just was totally lost in all of that. I really was. The only thing I sort of excelled at was drinking. By the time I was 14 years old, I was drinking regular, and that kind of wore it as a badge of honour. Look at me, I can drink this much and that much, which is a bit ridiculous looking back, but that's where I was at. And by the time I was 16 years old, I was quite a hardened drinker, to be honest. And then I would get into menial jobs when I left school, which paid poorly, poor working conditions and all of this sort of thing. Then my parents divorced, which affected me badly. They'd been married for 24 years. That was my only last sort of sense of security. And my world fell apart. I'm sure theirs did too. And I got into Class A drugs, and a 10-year drug addiction ensued. And during that time, unsurprisingly, I lost everything. I lost my son. I haven't seen him properly since he was 2-3 years old. Lost my relationship, the family home, ultimately my job, and I lost myself. You know, they say a cat has 9 lives, and I guess I must have 9 lives as well, because I should have died many times over all the drugs I used to take. And I remember one particular time, I'm alone in my bedroom, and I'll go 5 days without sleeping, barely enough food to sustain life. And then you'd sleep the sleep of the dead for 12 hours. And then you'd get up and you'd want to do it all over again. It was sick. It was self-punishment, self-hatred, self-loathing. So one such day, I hadn't slept 4 or 5 days, and I took out a bag of, I think it was amphetamine at the time. And I'm saying to God, to whoever, how much more of this shit have I got to take to kill myself? I didn't want to be here anymore. And I was just so fed up. So I took a huge, massive, crazy amount of amphetamine. And then nothing. Just silence. And I remember sort of coming round, looked at my watch, and it was like I'd lost 6 hours. I knew I hadn't been asleep, not least because, you know, you don't sleep on amphetamines, if anyone knows anything about them. And I would have been yawning and sort of doing this with my eyes, but in reality I felt refreshed. Excuse me. I felt renewed, invigorated, positive, a fresh perspective on life. And looking back, my spirit had obviously left my body. My body had sort of gone into sleep mode, repair, and my spirit had gone off for some much needed R&R, I guess. I can't say I blame it. So things did kind of change for me from that day onwards. I think sheer morbid curiosity kept me going. I knew there had to be something more to my life than getting high, feeling depressed, anxious, scared to leave the house, panic attacks, misery. I knew there had to be more to life than that. And that led, I remember my dad, around about that time, saying, "You need to go and see a psychic, son." I was like, "What? Why do I want to go and see a psychic?" He says, "No, you do. You need to go and see a psychic." So I went some weeks later, much to his amazement. And this psychic sat down, and for an hour he proceeded to tell me my deepest, darkest fears, things I hadn't shared with anybody, and I mean fucking anybody. He brought through my grandparents, the quirks, the traits, how they died, the conditions surrounding it, the conditions that took them over. He brought through my spirit guides. Apparently I had spirit guides, and he brought them through, told me to look into numerology. And something he said stuck with me. He said, "I feel like I've been to hell and back with you." He says, "My God, you've certainly been through it." And I remember thinking, what does he mean? Because when you're immersed in that, you don't really see it for yourself. You just think that's the way I am, that's the way life is. But of course, it shouldn't be like that. And he said I was psychic myself, but I wasn't doing anything with it. And I was like, "What? You can learn to do this?" He says, "Yeah, of course you can." You know, I said, "Well, how?" He says, "Well, there's books and libraries. You live near a library, presumably." I was like, "Well, yeah." I said, "Why do you get books on this?" And, which I was unaware of that he could. So I left that day, and I stopped taking drugs. It wasn't easy, but I managed it. I stopped smoking, and I stopped drinking for months completely. And it was the weirdest thing, because looking back, I had been having psychic experiences, out-of-body experiences, leaving my body, going for a walk around the house, and then looking to see my sleeping form on the settee, and I'm thinking, shit, I've died. And then it snapped straight back into my body. I would see things. I'd be at the back door smoking. I used to smoke in those days. It'd be dark, and I would see things, and I would go towards them, and then they would disappear. Like it would be a hand, or there'd be a person or a cat, and they wouldn't be there when I moved closer to them. They would just vanish. Spirit visitors through the night, just knowing things about people. And so anyway, that started me off on a journey of self-discovery, self-healing, meditation, reading everything I could get my hands on, finding a teacher, sitting in development circles, learning Reiki, spiritual healing, and all kinds of things, starting my own spiritual forums. Then I went out to live in Canada. I was doing readings, and I remember one incident. I was sitting in the living room reading a book, and I think it was Freddie Mercury's book, written by one of his personal aides. And this was a number of years after Freddie Mercury had crossed into the spirit world. And my then partner was sitting on the laptop on her knee. And I suddenly said to her, I've got Freddie Mercury with me. And she was like, yeah, right, of course you have. And I said, no, I have. He's here. I can see him, and he's talking to us. And she said, well, tell him to prove it. It could be anybody. So in my mind, I'm saying, okay, she wants proof. So how do I know it's you? She says, tell her this. So I started sharing what he was telling me verbatim with my then partner. And she had her mouth opened wide, and she was like, oh my God. She said, what you're telling me that he's telling you is exactly what I'm reading verbatim on these websites, because unbeknown to me, she clicked on websites about Freddie Mercury's life. And Freddie's saying, so does she believe me now? So she did, and Freddie Mercury ended up being with me on and off for weeks, months after that. Excuse me, whilst I lived in Canada. I've had other famous people come and see me. Well, how much credence you give this, I don't know, but I had Jimi Hendrix for a while. I've had Prince. I've had different ones. Elvis, for goodness sakes, and they all just come in to nudge me on, to encourage me to keep going when the times get rough. And of course, these days, we have our Facebook groups. Isabel and I have a joint venture, co-create, and we do our own individual one-on-one sessions, client work. And if you looked at the Danny when he was in his early 20s, mid-20s, hooked on drugs, you would have said that there's not a cat's chance in hell that I would have had the growth, the exponential growth, to get to this point today, doing Facebook Lives and interviews and groups, etc. So that's kind of a little bit of background from where I was to today. Yeah, that's my story in a nutshell.
Yeah, well, you're living your 20-year-old's dream life. That's cool. And okay, so you do psychic work now, you do energy healing work. Of course, we do our work together in the Empower Love program as well. What is it that draws you to this work? What do you love about it?
It's helping somebody to see that there's more to their life than they perhaps previously knew. When somebody comes to see me, whether they're in physical pain, emotional pain, the two are linked anyways, or they're in anguish about something, following the hour they spend, I can hold a space for them and guide them into certain areas. And at the end of the session, they just seem so much more relaxed. There's a glow to them. And I know for certain that the trajectory of their life will change once they leave the room or the Skype session or whatever. And they'll see more of who they are, experience more of their own creativity, their own joy, brilliance. And their life has changed forever. And they now know to whether they come back for another session with me, somebody else, or just unfold their own journey of self-discovery and healing and expansion. And I know that will happen that their life has changed. And that is priceless. That is amazing. And that fills me with joy. And it's just so fulfilling. Yes.
Yeah, it's a work of love, that's for sure. And everyone that works with you, and actually doesn't even need to work with you, anyone in our group, with everything that you share there, we feel that love, that passion, that desire to serve people, to help people become their fullest selves. So yeah, in the name of everyone, thank you for for that.
Thank you.
And segueing into something else, like you said, you've been through hell and back. You haven't noticed it as you're going through it, but yes, hell and back. For anyone who's watching who might be going through their own version of hell and back, what would you suggest to them to help them maybe see the light at the end of the road, or find something that suits them, that gives them a better place to stand for now?
I think there's a couple of things. I think the first one, to help people realize and understand, is that I don't care how far down the path you are, if there is such a thing as a path and a benchmark, because these things aren't linear, but how far evolved you are, etc. You're going to have your down days. You're going to have times when you feel self-doubt, not feeling worthy, good enough, comparing yourself to others, either unfavorably or making yourself feel better by, thinking that you're doing better than another person. We all have these times. And I think once you recognize that that is always going to be the case at times, I think that realization alone is valuable and useful. Leading up to this interview all week, I've been feeling loads of self-doubt. Who's going to want to listen to my story? What have I got to say? And it just felt insurmountable. And this is from somebody who does loads of Facebook live webinars. We've done loads, Isabel, together, individually. We've done shitloads. Yet this week, leading up to sharing my story, I had all these negative feelings. So step one, you're not alone. We all get like this sometimes. But it's a bit like weather. It doesn't last unless you want to cling on to it. So, for example, looking out the window today, it's raining. I might have had plans, daft example, to have a barbecue today, but it's peeing down with rain. Now, I can't take that personally. I can shake my fist at the weather, saying, you've got it in for me, you knew. but in reality, it's just weather. But as I'm speaking, the sun's starting to come out, ironically. So it's the same with your emotions. You want your emotions, you want your thoughts, you want even your physical body. You are before all of those. What you are is the awareness, the consciousness, the observer of those things. So if you're feeling sad, lonely, helpless, hopeless, just give yourself a little bit of headroom and think, well, this isn't who I truly am, because I'm not my thoughts or feelings. And just start to observe them. Let's see if your compassion doesn't include yourself and it's lacking, it's incomplete. So in the same way, if you've got a child, a son or daughter, and they run into your room through the night, they've had a nightmare and they're feeling scared, the appropriate response is to give them a hug, tell them they're there, you're safe, everything's going to be okay. It was just a bad dream. You might let them come into bed with you, give them a hug. What you don't do is say, you disgusting, weak human being, get out of here. How dare you, feel these feelings. So you love and have compassion for yourself as well. And think, okay, this is how I'm feeling at this moment in time. And it doesn't feel very pleasant, but I'm going to just honor it and just be with myself and have compassion for feeling this way. And then it starts to self-correct. You can really sort of shift out of the funk. Instead of being in that mood or mode for days or weeks, it can last. These days, it can be 20 minutes, half an hour, 5 minutes even sometimes. But just be okay with however long it takes. And there's obviously, in our groups, we've got a plethora of techniques, modalities that you can use, the Sedona method. There's all kinds of visualizations you can help. But in essence, that's my best advice for today, for where I'm at now.
Yeah, I appreciate that, because that's something that people can take with them anywhere. Even the techniques they can, of course, like the Sedona method, but if you know what's happening and why it's happening, meaning it's your thoughts that are making you feel that way, and you just allow yourself the compassion, the space to just feel what you want, there's no resistance in that, and it can just move out of you. So I think that's beautiful, beautiful advice. And another thing that I would like to ask you, for me and for everyone watching, you are psychic to your core. Okay. We all are, we know that. But how can people best tune into their own psychic information, psychic abilities? How can they be more attuned to their psychic side?
Ooh, interesting question, yes. Well, like you've already said, we're all psychic. Some don't believe in it, think it's a load of rubbish, and that's fair enough. That's where they're at. No judgment. But it was Einstein, I think, who said, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't do something, you're right either way. So if you see, a lot of people say, well, I'm not psychic, I can't do it. Your brain will go, all right, okay, no problem. It switches off from that task and it goes on to something else. And and that's just the way it is. So the first thing to do is open yourself to the possibility that you can do this. You are psychic. And so what I would suggest is close your eyes and open your heart space. Send out a card to a person or a pet or whatever it is that you want to connect with. And then just open your heart and start asking questions. What are you curious about knowing? There's ethics involved in this. You might want the person to approval, a permission before you start tuning into them. I know, Isabel, you ask an animal's permission before you do any work. And then just try and avoid yes or no answers. If you get a yes or no answer, say, can you give that to me in a different way that doesn't involve a yes or no answer, and perhaps in a way I've never thought of before. Okay. And then you can raise your vibration. What do I mean by that? Just start seeing something to take your vibration stratospheric is gratitude. Start saying thank you, thank you, thank you. Or the Christy Marie Sheldon mantra is I love, I love, I love. And your vibration starts rising and rising, making the connection much easier, much more solid. This is, it's not a rational, logical thought process. So you don't think it into being. Sense and feel. So what does it feel like? What am I sensing? And the easiest things to pick up on our emotions of a person, or health conditions. You might feel a constriction, you'll know this, Isabel, as well from your work, a constriction in the chest, or stomach issues. You might feel sick, nauseous, headaches, this sort of thing you can pick up quite easily. But yeah, it's amazing when you say, if you're doubting information you get, say, give that to me in a way I wasn't expecting. And the amount of times you're served, you think, God, that was a clever way of communicating, and you just know it hasn't come from you. I think another way to ascertain whether it's a product of your imagination or communication is to think back to the thought process. If you think of something and then see it, that's your imagination. You've created that. But if you see something and then think about it, become curious about it, then it's communication, if that makes sense. It's clairvoyance.
Makes perfect sense. Yeah, and thank you. By the way, I was connecting to your kitty. Saying hi.
It's another story, yes.
Yeah. Okay, so if people want to connect with you, communicate with you, reach out to you for a session or for whatever they desire, how is the best way that they can reach?
Well, I'm on Facebook. I'm in the EmPowerU Energy Healing Facebook group, or do a search for me on Facebook. I'm Danny Greene with an E on the end of Greene. Then there's my website, danny-greene.com. And yeah, and I think that's about it.
And we'll post the links also in the comments, not the comments on Facebook, probably below the video on YouTube, so that if anyone wants to reach out to you, they can find you both in Facebook and in your website. So first, thank you again for doing this. I think this was brilliant of you. Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you.
Your ups and downs, and yeah, the knowledge, the embodied moving through it that you can give to people now is priceless because exactly of what you went through. So again, thank you very much for actually agreeing to do this and kickstart this second round of interviews, and for the entire series, by the way, because this is your idea. Yeah, so just want to say that. Thank you. And before we close, do you want to share anything else?
I don't think so, to be honest. I think I'm quite happy with that. Yes.
Okay, perfect then. So everyone, hit the like button, the hearts, and if you have any questions or any comments, just put them in the comment section below, and we'll be very happy to see you on this second round of interviews too. Hope you enjoy this one, and we'll see you on the next live one. Bye.
Bye.